talking to y'all on Middle America for quite some time. So what I'm going to do for the next hour and a half before our show on the other channel is I'm going to do an Ask Me Anything. I am a Christian, YouTubing, pro-lifing, homeschooling individual with some Marxist tendencies. So here we go. That should open up some questions. Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
And you ain't black.
I don't know what I said.
The first time ever any...
What are you people?
We're Americans. We are Americans indeed. My name is Vincent, and this is Middle America with Vin and Sori, where we say we're not left wing, we're not right wing, we're just right. Oh my goodness. You know, it's funny to me, like, anybody who's ever been in an argument believes that they're right. Because otherwise, why are you arguing? So it's like such a weird accusation, like, every time we get into an argument, you always think you're right. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, that's why we argue, right? And sometimes when you argue, you find out I was wrong. My premise was wrong here, my premise was wrong there, and it led me to a faulty conclusion, etc., etc. It all depends, dear listener, on how you decide you're going to interpret those situations. So I am going to be fielding questions. Emily and this bitch, haven't seen you in a very long time. Ben Moen, haven't seen you. I thought this was a super heavy Alliance stream tonight. No, it is, but that's going to happen at 10 p.m. Eastern, and I'm just doing this to hang out with the Middle Americans. So come and welcome. The difference is that when it's me, I'm actually right. Yeah. Like Ian is right most of the times in a disagreement. What's up, BC? Hello, BC. Good to see you, buddy. Yeah. I very rarely get into any disagreements with Ian, but when we do, it's clear that I'm wrong. Shout out to Ian. Clarissa and this bitch, happy to be here. We're glad that you're here. You guys should react to this song, Dead But Pretty by Ice Peak. I've never heard of that band before. Aha, Randy Williams in this bitch. About to eat supper. Thought I'd stop by and say hi. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Good to see you. Let me put up this banner here. This Ask Me Anything banner. Huh? Let's do that. Greetings, Chad. Yeah, Ian. We'll chop it up for sure, buddy. We'll chop it up for sure. So let me see if I remember how to do this. See if I remember how to do this, dear listener. Okay, so while I'm talking or doing around whatever, you guys can ask whatever question you want, and I will answer it as honestly as possible, without getting everybody in trouble or anybody in trouble. Question number 1. Who made God? God is the unmoved mover and the necessary causeless first cause. In other words, if we were to go back regressively, if we were to say, okay, Vin, where did you come from? I say, I came from my parents. You go, okay, well, where do your parents come from? You can go all the way back to the Garden of Eden, right? Or you can go to the ammonia-rich primordial ooze that we crawled out of. You could go in that direction. But then you have to ask the question, well, where did the bacteria come from? And then you go all the way back until you get to the singularity, and the singularity exploded. And then you say, well, what was outside of that singularity? Because there must have been some sort of reality outside of the singularity. The problem is the singularity is our known universe. So the next logical question is that we've got our entire universe compacted in this little ball called the singularity. How in the hell did it explode? What caused it to explode? And when have we ever seen... Anyway, so if you go there, you're eventually going to have to eternally go back to the idea that you have to have a single being for all existence to occur. I had a conversation with one of my atheist friends about this. He said, how does that prove that there's a God? I said, very simple. 0 plus 0 equals 0. BC, if there was ever a time when nothing existed, then nothing would exist. That's not religion, that's not faith, that's just plain old logic, right? So that's how to answer that question. Nobody made God, and God at least at the philosophical level, it is necessary that he is not created? Good question. As Vic Vinegar says, God is outside of space and time. Correcto. Clarissa says, how are you guys doing? Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. A lot of really cool things coming up the pike, so you can't help but be excited. My question is, if the ICC put out arrest warrants on Benjamin Netanyahu and Smoltrick, does this mean Ian is still a mark? No, I don't think Ian's a mark anymore. I think they're going after him. Maybe some Julian Assange to throw it in there. What is my favorite typo negative song? I'm probably going to say Christian Woman, and here's why. Number one, it's a completely blasphemous song in my opinion. But it did speak to the complexities of female sexuality within evangelicalism. And it was very interesting watching Soraya's reaction to the song. You know, she was still brand new to all this shit. And I was too, quite frankly. Because like I said, all I knew was Korn and Metallica at the time. And so, like, that song, like, I was, like, massively uneasy. I looked at Shorty and, like, she was clearly enjoying the song. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, and then I got murked in the comments section also because I was like, you know, these goth kids, you know, like, because the goth kids in school I went up with, they're all soft and all this. And I'm like, this guy's some like goth like icon or something like that. You know, if I ran into him in high school, people were like, you dummy, he's 6'9". He wouldn't have done a damn thing to that boy in high school. I was like, oh, I Googled that. Holy shit, this thing is 6'9". No, we just got to go with the guns, bro. So yeah, it's gotta be that one. It's gotta be that one because it was paradigm. It was any time like my paradigms as to what's cool or what's good can be genuinely and legitimately challenged. I get really excited about it because new things to learn all the time. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna have to say Christian Woman by typo, not because I enjoyed the song, but I think that's too close to the line. I enjoyed Sori's enjoying of it. Say it that way. Okay, next question. God almighty. What sorts of Marxist tendencies do you have? Oh! Hold on, before I talk to you about my Marxist tendencies. That's a nice shirt, Vin. I like the color, and it's a nice fit. Looking sharp. That's your one compliment for the day. Jazakallah. Usually when my girl gets them here, some of you don't know my girls, but you'll see. My girl gets up here, like all of a sudden nobody wants to talk to me anymore. So I had to do this AMA so I could get some love for y'all. All right, now let me go back to that. What are your thoughts on Bring Me the Horizon saying if Jesus came back, they would kill him again? Well, obviously, I believe that that's true, depending on the sense that you're talking about. Now, we know as Christians that the next time Jesus arrives, it will not be incognito. It will not be like, you know, undercover in some trough somewhere where you would never expect to find a king. When Jesus shows up to wrap this whole thing up and put a little bow on it, if Ali is talking about that Jesus, obviously not, you're in for a rude awakening. But if he is saying, if we did a modern remake of the first coming of Christ, we would crucify him again, then obviously that's the biblical truth. We absolutely would. And if you go to the book of Hebrews, I think chapter 6, I believe this passage gets misinterpreted a bunch, but I think the principle is still pretty applicable. The person says that if you don't progress in your faith and progress in holiness, that at some level you are re-crucifying Christ. So, having said all that, I can't be mad at people for taking that position. It may very well mean that Ali was saying we'd kill him again because, you know, maybe these kids are tired of growing up in warfare. You realize that dudes in that kid's generation, all they've known is warfare in the Western world. You see what I'm saying? So I could see why they would have a lot of antipathy toward religion, and I could also see why they would have serious antipathy toward Christian religion, because our guy is the peacenik. He's I'm not going to kill my enemies. I'm going to pray for them as they're crucifying me. So your unbelieving friends know that that's the paradigm, but none of us wants to live that paradigm. So I think, like I said, it depends on what his intentions are. If intentions are, Jesus is not a big deal, we'll crucify him again, fine. But if he's trying to say that human beings suck collectively, and if the greatest human being looked us in the face, we would absolutely default to killing him. And, there's an interesting exchange in John chapter 7 between Jesus and one of his brothers. Sorry, Catholics. And his brother looks at him and says, why don't you go up to the feast and then show everybody in the world all your magical powers? And the narrator says, he said this to test him because not even his own brothers believed him. And then they said, well, why don't you just go and, go to the feast and, get all this praise for yourself, seeing as how you're the all-star brother. And Jesus looked at him and he said, for you, any time is right. Because you belong to the world and the world loves its own. He said, but as for me, not so much with me. And that's just a crazy answer to me, man. That's like, dude, think about what he's saying. He's saying that this world and the current system is for people that hate him. So, what's up, Wolves in the Mist? So that's how to answer that question relative to that. Is the earth round or flat? I believe that the earth is an oblong sphere. Do you have it in men's colors like red? Men's colors. I see what you did there. I'll tell you this, AJ. If I go out and I get one of these and I see it in red, I'm gonna get it for you. Send me a text of your shirt sizes. We can make that happen. No Diddy. You know what I'm saying? You're just my boy. Okay. We keep going. Vin, I feel like you need a podcast, brother. And when you do that, I'll definitely jump on sometime. CISO, I need you to text me, bro. My phone, I had to get my phone switched out. And so my previously unsaved messages, so I lost you. I've been looking for you for like 2 or 3 days. So if you can give me your number and then send me those music files, that'd be great. Hey, Justin, are you asking for prayer for your fam or are you praying for my fam? In which case, that's cool. Who do you think is going to win the presidential election, and are you voting third party? I am not going to vote for Trump or Biden. Anybody who votes for Biden, I understand why. Anybody who votes for Trump, I understand why. Me personally, these politicians are playing all of us on the, quote, left and the right, Democrat, Republican, whatever you want to talk about. I had this conversation a couple weeks ago, like, I'm Mr. Pro-Life. And, because we were in Maine, you kind of stick out like a sore thumb. And so we had people reaching out to us, published in Christian papers all around the world, blah, blah, blah. And we were able to sit in the back office with these people. And I promise you, saving babies was not on the agenda. The other thing is my son is in the belly of the beast. He's working for them folks, like locally. And I mean, they just flew him out to Alaska to run that, and then they're gonna fly him out to New Hampshire. I'm just bragging. I mean, that's an 18-year-old homeschool kid, man. He's it's just so funny to me. People talk about homeschooling and socialization and all the rest of it. It's like my son is able to. I'm not gonna get into it. I'm just homeschooling works, guys. Believe me, it works. So between Trump and Biden, I think Trump is going to win. I think if Trump wins, it'll signal probably an end to the conflict in Ukraine. I don't know about anything else, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I vote for Jill Stein, or maybe I just write in Jesus. We'll call it good. Did the Israeli president kill Razi of Iran? 0. Probably. I don't know, like, why the giant push. I don't know why the giant push toward World War III. I don't know how World War III benefits the Muslims or benefits the Israeli state. But it just seems to me that they're trying to instigate some sort of nuclear war. What's up, Rig? So like I you know, what can you do? I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. I'll be here, but not really here. Promise my peeps I'd stream some Ghost of Tsushima for them. I'll be here. That's cool, Ben. That is cool. Like your show. You seem like good people. I disagree, but love you. We need more of this. I appreciate that. If you're talking to me. Oh yeah, see right there. Pirate Alex had it. I'm considering Jill Stein. Yeah. I think that's the name that I dropped. She was the one. She got all that blame when Hillary lost. And Sam Sater was coming off the Jimmy Dore. Look at me, I sound like an Englishman. Sam Sater was coming after Jimmy Dore, all that shit, because he had the audacity, the unmitigated gall to say he voted for Jill Stein instead of the Antichrist. I would really like to hear your take on BRICS nations. Have you followed or even care? I love your viewpoints. Yeah, I have. And I think that a lot of this Ukraine conflict is about maintaining America's hegemony and making sure we don't have a bipolar world. And based on India's reaction, I don't think those guys have the cojones. Because look, there's so many parts of that culture that are contingent on American dollars and support and being friendly with American nations. And there are things that we do, like, for example, during World War II, help us Americans, help us. So we finally jumped into the war and shit and bombed the hell out of people. And you guys know what happened. We ended up being a lone superpower in the world after that. What a lot of people don't know is that the UK was paying off that debt up to like 5 years ago. Okay, so like everything is strategy with America and Americans. And so like I think everybody has to be armed with that knowledge and try to figure out how to gain the power back. I don't even like saying the word third party because it kind of implies that two is the kind of like the standard, and then if you're third, you're kind of some weirdo. But it's like there are multiple different, groups all through the country. It's not one or the other, but it's a pretty good ploy to just put everybody in boxes and then demonize everybody in that box so there's no nuance. What is Putin's endgame in Ukraine? Shouldn't it be over by now? Well, it would have been over by now, Zero, if our government, particularly Mr. Joe Biden and the dude across the pond, I forgot his name, impeded. This is on public record, by the way. Noam Chomsky talked about this. A lot of folks talked about this. My brother, there have been numerous times. Applejack has reported on this. There have been, Applejack's actually in the room right now. Have been numerous times when the Ukrainians and the Russians were trying to get to the table to negotiate peace pretty early in the invasion. And yes, I think it was an invasion. And yes, I think it is illegal. Whether or not I would want my head of state to commit such an act, that is a separate topic from just normal international law, right? And so if you're looking at, what is Putin's endgame, like I said, I think both of them are pursuing peace. I think Putin's endgame is to say, leave those people in Donbass alone and give us Crimea, because the Crimeans don't want to be with y'all anyway, not after that color revolution. So that would be the logical thing to do. But there are elements within that government, and I just use Azov Battalion as a placeholder, but we all know that that place has a neo-Nazi problem. And what I try to explain to people is that there are neo-Nazis in America for sure. The difference is that those neo-Nazi kids that are in America, their great-grandfather was killing Nazis. In Ukraine, okay, if you're running around with Nazi insignia, that's because your grandfather was rounding up Jews and executing them. So we know that there's a serious problem there. And when the negotiations for peace came in, Boris went and screwed it up. And then Biden and his crew of acolytes went and screwed it up. And then Google this, Cobalt. There's this dude named Dennis Kyrieve. And Dennis Kyrieve was doing his damnedest to shut everything down and get us peace. And the Azov boys marched him right out of that meeting and executed him in broad daylight. So when you talk about Putin's endgame, it just seems to me that, one, he wants to let the United States know there is a red line. Like, I don't know if you guys remember this, but when Putin was going after Georgia, and it was clear he was about to invade Georgia, and Obama said there was a red line, and he basically said, if you go past this red line, bro, you're going to feel the weight of the U.S. military. And so Putin said, oh, for real? For real? Okay. So he poked us in the eye. He stepped right over the line. Boop. There's our president at the press conference talking about some, well, blah, 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 blah. So when you have a situation like that with a leader who's perceived to be weak on the international level, who's perceived to be a joke. Now, listen, say what you want about Trump, but all of our allies and enemies are scared to death of him. I can tell you that for a fact. You know what else is unique about Trump? The people that like him are also afraid of him. It's a crazy, crazy situation, man. Crazy situation. So Americans supporting Yahtzees and Jewish people. Vin, you might as well said Aesop fables. I don't know what that is. I don't know what Aesop's. Well, I do know what Aesop's fables are, but I don't know how that works with the situation we're in. Sent you some text. Was a demo from before. Got some good news for you. Okay, perfect, man. I've been waiting on you. The Prime Minister's name is Rishi Sunak. He's the Prime Minister for now, but he's the one that has been complicit with genocide alongside of Biden. Yeah. But again, like, it's New Jacks like Ian's generation, things like that are saying this is bullshit. And I love it because the young people are going to end up saving us because they didn't get to go through all the propaganda and they're media savvy. You know what that means? That means young people know how to see the real shit. They know how to look for the unsanitized bodies. They know how to look for and their parents do not. And so that's why you had certain elements saying we have a TikTok problem and all the rest of it, because these kids, they know how to access real news. I'm sorry, but I was telling Soraya, like, we were in that kind of like transitional generation where it's like, like our kids are internet natives. Like there's two things about people that were born in my kids' timeline, early, mid 2000s, is that they never experienced a day without being online, and they never experienced a day without their country being at war. So these young kids, man, they're sick of it because it's all they know. They don't even know what it was like prior to us getting in the middle of everybody's shit. And so these kids are watching this stuff and they can't stomach it. Meanwhile, their parents and their grandparents are watching Tucker Carlson or, Anderson Cooper or whoever. So that's my take about that. USA created Israel in 1948 in the middle of the Palestinians' country. It's your fault for that shit. Well, listen, I will proudly fight and die for the US of A. I know that my country has significant issues. We are not solely responsible for what happened in 1948. There's a lot going on prior to that and after that. But I agree with you. I don't think we should have ever given unilateral support to those folks. So I have no problem saying that my country has fallen short of its ideals. I mean, that's what it means to be an American. Is the U.S. headed on civil war based on the outcome of this election? TPTB means the powers that be. I think I went through this training one time, and it talked about how to orchestrate situations without appearing to be the conductor. And in the first week, the main thing that was a problem was you're too aggressive about planting that kind of a seed. And so you have to think strategically when you're thinking about all this stuff. If I think about the concept of a civil war, I am not certain that there is enough animus in this country for people to strap up and kill their own family members. The horrors of the transatlantic slave trade and things like that for sure played a factor in certain people's minds. I just think that I hate to say it this way, but once there's a certain demographic, and once those people leave the world, I think we'll be in a lot better shape, and I think that's going to happen before a civil war. Let me just say it that way. Ooh. That's why young people are leading the fight on climate change and green issues. They're going to inherit the planet that fossil fuels are destroying, while old millionaires call it woke. 100% true. 100% true. I will never understand this whole, like, let's just abuse the planet because God gave it to us. It's like God gives you a convertible, so you think the way to honor him is to run that motherfucker into the ground? Okay. Then, have you seen a doc called Tantura? They interview IDF veterans who participated in the Nakba. To be honest with you, I'm taking a break from the Israelis. I'm taking a break from the Israelis. Say it that way. But I will watch it. I will watch it. But there's nothing that I hate more than the arrogance of a coward, man. And these IDF soldiers, to me, anyway. Britain is responsible for creating Israel more than the U.S. Yeah, I mean, obviously. You know, we didn't write the protocols design. I just say that because it's Mike in your movie Spider-Man, big power equals big responsibility. USA, you're supposed to lead the world since 1945 because you have a lot of money, but it's not top. No, I completely disagree with you. The fact that the United States is the most capital in the world does not automatically obligate us to take your side or anybody's side in a war. I don't know where you got that idea. Like, I'm not upset at you. I'm just, where are we getting this idea that the world is owed a U.S. police force? And then you have to ask the next question. Okay, since we're the only country in the world that is your police force, how are we going to be compensated for policing your region? You can't have it both ways, right? If we're going to spend manpower and blood to go all over the world and solve all the problems that you believe that we should solve as Americans, how do we get compensated for that? I think it's a lot more difficult when you start really making it, you know what I'm saying? MAGA cultists will try to start a civil war against radical leftists, but will ultimately get shut down by sane Americans. Thank you. I really don't think that that's the case, man. I really don't. I think you have to give some respect and props to the MAGA folks. Because let me tell you something. They were completely against that vaccine from day one. And Mr. Trump was the one who took credit for said vaccine. You had Ben Shapiro, you had all these right-wing talking heads. Tucker was always vaccine skeptical. But those Trump supporters booed him on multiple occasions, and now you see he doesn't talk about it anymore. So this idea of the mindless, stupid, right-wing hick with 4 teeth, straw in his mouth, but like this whole racist stereotype of the normal person who votes for Trump, the whole basket of deplorables thing. I don't know, man. Read The Art of War. I'm just saying this in general. Read The Art of War. Like, feel how you want to feel about Mr. Trump, but he's not dumb. I also don't believe that the people that follow him are dumb either. I used to believe they were mindless sheep, but they shot down Operation Warp Speed. I thought that was going to get him a bunch of political capital on both sides of the aisle. The Democrats didn't really care that Trump did that because he told people to drink bleach, so they thought that would narrow it out. Ridiculous. And here come the Republicans now, and their boy Trump said, and they're not going along with it. So I'm going to look at that. I'm going to change my position on these people because now I've got new data. I've got a test case, and they gave their man the finger. So there is a symbiotic relationship between Trump, his love for power and attention, and the people who are voting for him, hoping to kind of reestablish their place in society and the world. And that's why he's successful, and that's why people like Biden and all the rest of them will never understand how that works. Vin, can you comment on the comment I left for you? Do me a favor and repost it. I love how a disembodied arm disappears around me. We're a well-oiled machine in this bitch. Who'd win in a fight, Abraham or Moses? I'm going to have to say Moses would win because he was trained in the Egyptian military, and those guys were the most advanced in that period of time. There's a story around Genesis 17 where Abraham's nephew gets kidnapped, and Abraham gathers a crew of gangs, basically. I mean, the Old Testament calls them kings, but they were really just gang leaders. This is like Abrahamic period, right? So yeah, they kidnapped his cousin, his nephew, and he's strapped up. It says that Abraham and his servants and all the fighting age males in his house, and they went and they combined with these other kings, and they just went in there and wrecked shop. They killed everybody and brought Lot back. So Abraham wasn't no pushover, but this guy Moses was trained as a military strategist and had a much higher IQ. Like if you look at what he talks about as far as navigating the wilderness, the people, the territories that you're supposed to go in, the territories you're supposed to avoid, the way in which he tries to negotiate for passes, for all these things are things that you get trained on when you enter into various intelligence apparati. So Moses deployed a reconnaissance team. Like if you're a military person and you read that passage, like what he's doing. Abraham just had God with him, and God bless him, but I can't hold a candle to Moses. I don't think so. Yeah, Moses dropped the body for sure. I agree. He took care of his business. What raid are we talking about? Something disturbing on the news. I'm verifying it through sources online. Apparently, the FBI gave permission to use lethal force against Donald Trump and his security team during his Mar-a-Lago raid. The fact that lethal force was sanctioned does not sit well with me and at all. And I'm no fan of Trump, but outright authorizing lethal force against the former president is fucking crazy and suicidal. Listen, dear listener, them Trump supporters endured 4 years of Russiagate nonsense. They were lied to. They were lied about. Their president, who is the icon of them and all their privilege, you did everything you could to spit in its face. If them folks were as imbalanced and crazy as Hillary and the rest of them want us to believe, then there would have been way more blood in the streets, bruh. How about we just look at the collective humanity of everybody in the country and realize that all of us are getting jerked by this class of people? That's kind of where I'm at right now. Economically, you're number one today. When I see Trump or things like Hollywood, I can't understand why USA has so much power around the world. Well, I think that probably our Protestant work ethic has a lot to do with it. While there are significant drawbacks to capitalism, the people that can figure out how to manipulate that system do pretty well in it. And we just have more people than any other European country. Weren't you supporting the vaccine and all the COVID propaganda and trusting the science? Sure. Bass, I'm not like y'all, man. I don't care if they say I'm wrong. If you're wrong, you're wrong. I shoot a whole damn video on it. So I don't care about any of that. If Trump wins, he'll destroy you guys. The whole world hates that guy. Yeah, that's the problem, Julian. You don't understand. As an American, I would rather people hate my president than laugh at him. When Trump was the president, there's certain things that did not happen. Right? So the president is not a popularity contest. So it doesn't matter if the whole world hates us. And the other thing, my brother, is that the whole European Western world is dependent on our economy. So they can hate us all they want, but they can't break free from us. That's not going to happen. Not in our lifetime anyway, especially now. Those Germans, that Nord Stream 2 line, yeah. Do you have sympathy for Trump because of what the Democrats have put him through? No. Listen, Abraham Lincoln got assassinated. John Kennedy got assassinated. Nobody's assassinating him. See what I'm saying? And for as many people that hate him, there's people that love him exponentially more. And so I don't feel bad for him because I don't have pity for winners. And the guy's a winner, so I don't feel bad for him. Joe to go. It seems Christians have an overwhelming support for Israel. What do you think on that? I wish Biden was better with his foreign policy. He's been doing horrible with getting Netanyahu to listen. I don't want to do a long version or a short version. Let me try to condense this for my brother. Okay, Joe to go. Here we go. So we talk about this. Long story short is that God created the world. And when God created the world, there's God, and he's the Most High, capital G God. But there are also derivative gods that the Bible calls gods that report to him. And so this is called the Divine Council worldview. Psalm 82 is the most famous one where it says, God takes his place in the Divine Council. Amidst the gods, he declares judgment. The term gods there is not the same term that we use to mean the ultimate creator of everything. The term God means a spiritual being that is ranked higher in the hierarchy than men who have superhuman power, intelligence, etc., 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 and they function as a sort of bridge of communication between God and man. Okay? So those are the gods. Those are gods, lowercase g. Well, what ended up happening with humanity is we decided that we would much rather serve those gods than the actual true God. And so what God did, he says, okay, fine. You guys want to go your way? Go your way. Here you go, Arabs. Here you go, Vikings. Here you go, blah, blah, blah. Go for it. And those gods who were originally designed to help us, as the scripture says. Scripture says that God created the angels as ministering spirits sent to serve us who will inherit salvation. So their job was to serve us and then point us back to Yahweh, but we decided they were cooler to worship than Yahweh because they didn't have any rules we had to follow. So the entire world turns against God. Everybody goes their own way. And then God says, I'm going to keep one group of people of myself. And he looks at this guy and he says, Abraham, you. He just said, you. So he takes Abraham and he says, I'm going to build a great nation out of you. And so what God is doing is he isolates Abraham from his pagan context and then inculcates this sort of monotheism, which I'm not sure that he completely got by the time he was dead. But he's got this infused monotheism, and so now he starts this line of this monotheistic religion. And so that is where the people of Israel comes in, because God shows up to Abraham and says, I'm going to bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And in you and your seed, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. In other words, the job of Abraham and his family was to be the last family or the last group that maintain loyalty to Yahweh. And after they demonstrate that loyalty, their job was to go out and recruit. That's the idea. That's why Israel is important. Israel is important because they were assigned that task. Now we get to the New Testament. God said specifically in Deuteronomy, I'm going to send somebody. Everything he says, you need to listen to him. If you don't listen, I'm going to cut you off from the people. And from a Christian worldview, that person was Jesus. And so they rejected Jesus and they crucified Jesus. And Jesus had prophesied to them that if they didn't listen within 40 years, Jerusalem was going to get razed to the ground. And historically speaking, that's exactly what happened. So why do evangelical Christians unilaterally support Israel? Because they take that passage where Abraham is told, I'll bless those who bless you, and he who curses you, I will curse. They take that as the Jewish people can do no wrong. You should never say anything bad about Jewish people, blah, 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 blah. Of course, Abraham, if you would have said, Abraham, are you a Jew? He'd say, what are you talking about? That's an anachronistic idea. During the timeline where Abraham was, there were no Jews, because the term Jew comes from one of the 12 tribes of Israel, namely the tribe of Judah, which, by the way, is where Jesus was physically descended from. Okay, so to them, that promise, I'll bless those who bless thee, and he who curses you, I will curse, you'll be a blessing to all the nations. They do not interpret that as Abraham was the one that was going to bring us about the seed that's going to save the world. They were interpreting that as, you literally, if you say anything bad about Israel, God's going to destroy you. And so it doesn't matter what the Israelis do. It doesn't matter how many war crimes they commit. These people believe, theologically speaking, that God is I'm sorry, but they believe this, that God's a racist, and that he doesn't care about the Palestinians, by the way, who are also sons and daughters of Abraham, who are actually more. I'm not going to get into that. So that's why their theology is screwed up. They read the Old Testament and they don't harmonize it with the New Testament, and there you go. Now there are racial ramifications to this that I'm not going to get into. We just keep it moving. But suffice it to say, it's unjust. It's unjust to support those people, and it's not enough to say that Israel's committing a genocide. We now have to say that America has been complicit in the genocide. It's a fact. We are complicit. You pay taxes. We are now complicit in this bullshit. Unbelievable. Do you believe in the divine feminine? I probably do, and it's really interesting, Zero, because I was just thinking about the divine feminine like 4 or 5 hours ago. Define to me what divine feminine means, and then let's unpack it, inshallah. Evangelicals see the Galatians 3:29, only Christians are Israel. Yeah, Basilius, I have a John MacArthur study Bible, and you know John MacArthur is like the biggest premill dispensationalist in the world, right? So I'm going to Galatians when Paul talks about Jerusalem below is in slavery with her children, and Jerusalem above is free and she's our mother, and we're making the contextual divide between Sarah and Hagar, right? And where he compares the unbelieving state of Israel to Hagar and her son, who was born after the flesh in an explicit manner, over and against true believers in Christ who belong to the Israel of God and the holy city. Those people aren't Israel, though, according to that. It's just a crazy situation. Shauna TV in this bitch. Little Bully says, do you think Enoch is canonical? Do you believe those events historically happened? I believe that, obviously, Enoch is a pseudepigraphal book, meaning that somebody wrote it in persona, right? It'd be like if I wrote a biography of Abraham Lincoln, right? But, and I got to be very, very careful on how I phrase this. So I do not think that the Book of Enoch is canonical because, one, it's pseudepigraphal, but two, Enoch goes into great detail about what these people did, what these angels did, and things of that nature. And I just think the divine strategy is to not give them any sort of more attention than they need, that more attention than what we need. And if you look at the Enochian literature, it goes really deeply into what they did, what they look like, all that type of thing. And so I could see God's divine strategy being like, look, I'm not going to glorify you weirdos. You know, it's kind of like like in Saudi Arabia, if you're a serial killer or you're like a mass rapist, they will not like publish that. When they're trying this dude, they won't publish it. They won't talk about it. The only time you hear about dude is when they're about to execute him. And their thought process is, the more we put this out into the ether, the more people are going to have a category for this. So all they want in the association is, this guy's a murderer and he got hanged immediately. Or this guy's a rapist and he got hung immediately. So there are obviously positive aspects to that. But there are also negative aspects to that, because that conduces to a lot of miscarriages of justice, I think. Vin, the USA is more complicit because all of the weapon mistakes missiles tank Israel is using to kill civilians. As a French guy, I know what terrorists are. We were attacked often last year as an army. Those bastards stab you in the back and disappear. What Israel is doing is nonsense. I mean, I agree. And I also agree that, you know, I, by extension, am complicit in the genocide of those beautiful people. All people think they're right when it comes to religion. The facts are, none of us know the truth. We haven't lived long enough. I mean, it just depends on how you wield the concept of truth. I think that's, you know, Paul has a statement. He said, we can do nothing for or against the truth. The truth is in itself. It's self-contained. And that's why Jesus called himself the truth. It's something that's outside of us that we can either recognize or deny. Let's see. Danny Trujillo, I haven't seen you in a long time. It's insane that in America we have the freedom of speech to criticize our own country, but now we're considered anti-Semitic if we criticize Israel. I mean, look, bro. The Israelis have not done a very good job of debunking all the conspiracy theorists that have been around since forever. You know what I'm saying? It's just not looking good right now. Like, this guy Ben Shapiro is getting washed every single time he posts something on Twitter. He's getting washed every day. And these are people, again, who Trump supporters, all the rest of it, but they're like, yo, you're not America first either, bro. That's pretty crazy. Big T, shout out to Big T. Big T says that anytime Hamas can release hostages and stop hiding behind civilians, but the Israelis are the bad guys. Big T, let's do a little have you ever. Big T, how many Hamas fighters historically are located in the West Bank? Like base of operations, right? How many detachments of Hamas are stationed in the West Bank? What do you think of Keffels and Anna apologizing? So Keffels is the one, she said that she got swatted. Which means, you know, it's what happens when you don't like somebody. It happens to trans people a lot, where you don't like what the person's saying, and you have their address, and then you call police and you say this person's holding a weapon, and right now in the atmosphere, I mean, that could really result in some serious bodily injury. And this girl says she woke up with a barrel, in her face, and she thought she was gonna die. I mean, if you've ever been woken up that way, man, that shit is. I got woken up that way one time, and it wasn't like that. It was like diagonal to the whatever. That shit is scary as hell. So Shorty's out there telling us that, like, yo, holy hell, man, that's terrible. So Shorty put up a GoFundMe. She ended up on the Guardian, CNN, all this shit, talking about a story. Raised all this. I think she raised up like $150K. And then it turns out, like, she also said she had to do it for equipment. Then it turns out that, Shorty... This is where I get a little bit confused as far as the anger. She checked herself into rehab. That's not cheap. She had to rebuy her new stuff. That's not cheap. Trust me, I know. And she had to have a place to live. Now, one of the things that she did, she paid her entire year's rent. This is about $28K. She paid off the entire year's rent with that salary. I mean, with that gift. And then she went to rehab, and people were like pissed off at her because they're like, yo, Why don't you say that? You said, it was for living and all the rest of it. I personally don't get it. If I give somebody X amount of dollars and I say, the reason I'm giving you that money is because I want your life to improve. I want you to have the best life possible. I'm not really a fan. To me, if you give the money, it's no longer your money. And I don't believe that when you give somebody charity, you are now their accountant. So for me, if she would have took the money and bought a sports car with it and, bought all types of weirdo shit with it, like, okay, but she paid for her apartment, which in this economy makes a lot of sense. She spent money and got herself into rehab. She did buy her stuff again. But again, $150K is a lot of fucking money. So people are like, yo, where's the other money going? I don't have a problem with her going to rehab. I don't have a problem with her paying off her rent and all the rest of it. Go, do it. That way you don't have to be stressed every month, man. So like, more power to her for that. I'm probably missing something, like she lied. I get it. But in my opinion, she could have been doing a lot worse than checking herself into rehab and buying a year's worth. So when Anna was reporting on it, I was kind of like, yo, like, really? We're going to go there? Like, really? She's a fraud? She's terrible? I'm like, I don't know. She's a fraud, man. Like, I don't know. So that's how to answer that question. That was kind of a long-winded answer. We live in strange time. Programmable DNA, resurrection of the Tower of Babel, and a financial collapse we haven't felt yet. Yeah. No, you're right. This is like such a succinct sort of spiritual, social diagnosis of the issue. You look at this. That's what I'm saying. We got, like, shit's crazy. When I saw the Iranian missile against U.S., Britain, France missiles, I was scared. Everything could be destroyed because of a few idiots in some governments. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, like, I don't know what the end game is with Mr. Netanyahu, but it seems to me those folks want World War III. You know what I'm saying? So I don't, hopefully the young people can intimidate the Democrats such that they actually do something that's just, for God's sake. Ray Phoenix in this bitch. Uh-oh. You're missing a lot of this. She lied to get the money. She created the stipulations. Yeah, see? That's my problem. Because, like, I agree. Like I said, the apartment stuff and the rehab stuff, I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I'm glad she did that. But there's still a significant chunk of money left over, and there's really no understanding of what the fuck she's doing with that chunk of money. So for me, the minute I give you money, it's out of my hands. It's no longer my property. And to be honest with you, I will never speak to you about it again. Like, that's the idea. Other people are like, well, if I gave you money, like, I want to be able to investigate what you're using for. I don't think that that's crazy. But for me, if I truly believe in this Christianity shit, I believe that I'm going to get rewarded by God, because to me, it's a form of unconditional love, right? Because there's a lot of work and effort that came into that money. And so I'm transferring all that work and effort, those units of energy in the form of money to give to this person. That's a beautiful act in and of itself. And if you're a Christian and you feel that God, we've got this phrase in our family, Coram Deo, it means walk before the face of God. If you're living that kind of lifestyle where you're God conscious all the time, you're gonna feel that pride, man. You're gonna feel the pride. It just kind of wells up and you go, holy shit, that's crazy. So yeah. If Keffel's, in full disclosure, I had a really, really good friend, still have a really good friend, that came into contact with this woman. And my friend is one of the most brilliant, thoughtful, psychologically mature individuals that I know. And this lady put my friend in a hospital, man. Not like beat her up or whatever, but just psychological torment, the games, the gaslighting, all the rest of it. I wasn't really, really looking much into it because at the time, it was a year or two, you remember the Republican strategy was just, let's keep talking about trans people. So that point in the timeline, I wasn't really a fan. I wasn't really a fan of knowing about that shit. You feel me? Just to go with a $20 super chat. I do not know if you have an answer here. So Christian media movies TV is often criticized for being trash. What is the best content out there? Part 2. What are the other Christian YouTubers you recommend? Yeah, so during the Protestant Reformation, one of the major things that Luther came up with was this concept of the priesthood of all believers. Remember, with Catholicism, the priests are almost they're definitely another religious class, and prior to the implementation of celibacy, they were also socially powerful. And so you had this hierarchy of the Pope, the magisterium, your bishop, and blah blah blah, and then you common person was in the dirt. They would turn their back to you and read Latin mass, right? So all the shit's in Latin. You can barely deal with your lingua franca, much less Latin, right? So these people don't know what the hell's going on. And that's why they were so vulnerable during the Protestant Reformation, because Luther was like, man, fuck those people, bro. You got a Bible? All right, cool, let's go. And then it got to the point where Luther was starting to think through, what does it mean that all of us are priests? And then he came to the conclusion. He said, if I go up there and I preach a sermon on Sunday, I'm doing God's work. And then he said, the shoe cobbler, if he makes an excellent shoe, he's doing God's work. And so that created this new category for people like, yo, what I'm doing is holy. And that's why you talk about the Protestant work ethic, because there's a mixture of, I need money, I need to support my family, but there's also a theological reason for that. And so that's why. Now here's the setup for that. The setup is, under the old system, you had spirituality over here, and then you had your the world over here, right? That thinking is still seeped into the mind of Christian movie producers. And so it's like, on the one hand, it's like, oh, this is a pretty cool theory or theme, but they couldn't execute it because they're Christians and they're trying to be nice. You see what I'm saying? So you get stuck in this kind of like epicenter of just, I don't know, man, the predictability. Have you ever seen God's Not Dead? Now, I will say, there's a show called The Chosen. It's great. We're actually, send me an email. I might get you a free ticket, but we're actually going to be doing a series, a watch along, with The Chosen. Like it's really, it's kind of modernized. They modernized the speech, so you got more of an understanding of what Jesus is trying to say. And they did a very, very good job at showing the flaws of all of our heroes, except for Jesus. These are very, very flawed people. It's very real. It's a really, really good show. You should definitely check it out, Joe. Jay Dyer, Sam Shamoon, Seraphim Hamilton, Church of the Eternal Logos, Patristic Nectar Films. Yeah, Jay Dyer, if you're into apologetics, Jay Dyer, I'd say, is a premier apologist for the Eastern Orthodox position. If you saw Jonathan Pajo's kind of debate with Muhammad Hijab, it didn't go very well. But that's because Eastern people don't operate the way that Western people do. They stood outside during the Reformation, whole nine yards. Yeah, it's too watered down because there's this dichotomy between the sacred and the secular in the minds of a lot of Christians. And so it's like, movies are secular by definition. That's what they think. And so because of that, we're going to go and tell stories that are not too edgy. But I remember being a kid and reading the Bible like, oh, David, racked up 100 foreskins because he wanted to have sex with this girl. That's literally what it says. So I looked at that shit and I was like, whoa, that can't be right. So I went to my mom. I said, Mom Dukes. She said, what's going on, baby? I said, look at this right here. She said, yeah. I said, is that what we on right now? We on that? She said, yeah. He got the girl. What's the problem? Okay? So, you know what I'm saying? Like, the Bible is a grimy book, man. It's a grimy book. It's an ugly book. it's a dark book. And by the time you lose all hope, there's like one little star, and that, boom, that's Jesus, and you're all rescued. The point of the Bible is to get you on an emotional roller coaster ride where there's a candidate for the Messiah in every chapter, and you start feeling hope, and then he fucks everything up. And so, like, the Bible is just so raw and explicit, and then when we project that onto the movie theater, man, forget it. We can't deal with it. Because all of us were raised in the 80s, PG movies, G movies, blah, 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 blah. So, that's where I was going to go. I was going to quit watching. Wait, I'll give it a shot. I started The Chosen Way back. It's good, but something about it. Yeah, I mean, as time goes on and they got more and more popular, they're going to go to 7 seasons. I remember when they were crowdfunding this. They played a clip. It was like 4 or 5 years ago. They played a clip, and I was like, I got to be a part of this. So you can invest in all the rest of it. But yeah, we were on the launch team for that. And then when it came out, totally blown away. The Bible had genocide. Well, I disagree that the Bible had genocide, although I can understand why you would say that. So the markers of genocide, one of which is racial superiority, did not apply during the conquest narratives. The other aspect of genocide, which is one-way killing, was also not reflected in the Old Testament, even in the grimiest kill passages there. Number 3, the term every man, woman, child, and beast relative to warfare is not a literal statement of fact, but rather the way in which ancient people talked about a total victory. We have stelas and things of that nature from other Canaanite sort of areas where they would say the exact same thing. We completely annihilated these people, blah, 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 and they killed like 248 people. So a lot of this is reading about a culture that was around 3,000 years ago and anachronistically putting that idea into those people instead of saying, okay, how did those people use words? So we did a talk on Old Testament violence, and we quoted some Hammurabi as well as some other folks. Fifthly, when everybody knows the Canaanites, the Perizzites, all these other people, there was a guy named Uriah, and Uriah was part of the bad crew. And Uriah also has the name Yah in it, Uriah. So, you know, it means something Yahweh, right? Like, for example, Yeshua means Yahweh is salvation, right? So this guy's name is Uriah. And he is from a Hittite tribe. Remember, the Hittites were marked for genocide. And Joshua said, we completed the mission. And then you go into 2 Kings, and there's Uriah the Hittite. What the hell? Well, it's very obvious. When the Bible says, kill all those people, blah, 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 he's not saying everybody in there is going to die. What he's saying is you have to have a decisive victory, particularly the heads of those states need to be taken out so they can no longer propagate their terror in the world. If you look, Joe, at the Red Sea crossing in Exodus 12, it says not only that the Israelites left, but it also said a great mixed multitude went with them. And then presumably once they crossed the Red Sea, these people were drawn into, you know, the various tribes, etc., etc. The racial purity aspect of genocide is completely ruined by the Bible itself. Why am I saying that? Well, number one, Abraham has Sarah, right? Sarah comes from Ur of the Chaldees, just like him. So they're both Iraqis. So they're going on this journey, this adventure, because God sent them all over the place. And when you look at how these people dealt with situations, you can see that God is saying anybody that violates these standards is getting it. So Uriah, not only was his life spared, but he obviously converted to Judaism or the form of Israelite monotheism there. The reason is because he has the name Uriah. Uriah was not the name of the Canaanite gods. Okay, the Canaanite gods were dealing with El, Marduk, blah, 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 not Yahweh. So it's clear that he changed his name once he pledged devotion to Yahweh. And this guy was so devoted to Yahweh and the people of Israel that he wouldn't even go and sleep with his wife while it was time to go to war. And long story short, David, you know, like David and Goliath, David, he killed Uriah because he got his girl pregnant and he didn't want to deal with the shame of doing that. So he had this dude killed, okay? And God doesn't say, well, you know, Uriah was a Hittite. As a matter of fact, every time Uriah's name is used, they always say Uriah the Hittite. They want to rub that in your face. Like, number one, God's not a racist, okay? If you pledge fealty to him, then you're in. And he'll give you a new name, and then you're in. So that's one reason. The other reason is to say, look what this guy did. Look what David did to this guy. So David kills this guy. And so God shows up to David and says, you killed a dude who loved me and supported you. Now, I'm not going to kill you and send you to hell. But the baby that you knocked up this dude's wife, and the reason you killed this dude, I'm going to take that baby from you, bro. You got to pay for that shit. You did that to that man. David didn't say, well, whoa, he's a Hittite. We're supposed to be able to do what we want. No disrespect to Islam, but that's really the dynamic, honestly. He didn't say that because he understood, no, we're not supposed to kill every single Hittite, Canaanite in the world. We're supposed to take out their heads of state, okay? That's what's supposed to happen. And Uriah was just a regular grunt dude. He converted to Israelitism, and he went out and fought and died like a gangster. So there's one last story I'm going to tell you guys. And what happened is all the people of Israel experiencing this horrible famine, and it's not lifting. People are starting to drop. So David and Goliath, he shows up and says, Basilius. Yeah, I don't feel sorry for the Canaanite folks that got murked over there. Not at all. I mean, they were horrible people. Almost as bad as Americans. Okay. So anyway, there's this horrible famine, and remember, you're in an agrarian society, man. So a famine is like literally a death sentence for a country, and it kept going and going and going. So finally, David shows up to God. He says, "Help us! What the hell's going on? Why are you doing this?" And God shows up to David and says, "There is injustice done in the land, and I'm going to fight for those people until you make that right." So David goes, "Who?" God says, "Go up the hill that way. There's another little subsidiary of a Canaanite tribe. Go over there. You'll see what I'm talking about." And then the narrator says that these people, the Gibeonites, they got chased into the mountain. And look what it says. It says, Saul, the king before David, because of his zeal for Israel, almost wiped them out. Think about that. These guys are Gibeonites. They're on the kill list. Saul kills a bunch of them. And God holds the entire fucking country hostage. For the sake of these people who 2 chapters earlier you told us we're supposed to completely annihilate. No, I don't think anybody took completely annihilate. Literally, what they meant was take care of their heads of state so these people can no longer practice this religion of setting their babies on fire to Molech. But Saul took it away from the theological import and made it about his patriotism. It says Saul in his zeal for Israel. He missed it. He thought all those conquest narratives were a pro-Israel, yada, 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 yada. He forgot that when God says, I'm going to send you in the land to be a sort of judgment for these people, they forgot the second part where God says, and if you come corrupt in the land, I will send somebody to fuck you up too. Again, genocide doesn't work that way. It's like the Tutsis and all that. We're going to say, well, they're going to come back and get us. Like that's not how it goes. As a matter of fact, the reason for genocide is to ensure that the people that you harmed can't harm you back. So here's my point. David goes up to these Gibeonites and he says, listen, Yahweh's holding my entire country hostage for y'all. We understand that Saul tried to completely annihilate you, and we know that that was wrong, and we know that that was not in the heart of God, because it says he had a zeal for Israel and not a zeal for God. We took out the heads of state. I know personally, I was there. You guys should have the right to live in peace. Tell us what we can do so that God stops screwing up the land. The Gibeonites say we don't have any right to tell you guys what to do. And David said, that's okay. Right or wrong, I need to lift this famine. So tell us what you want. They said, all right, cool. Get us 7 sons from Saul. So they brought 7 sons from Saul, and those Gibeonites executed. It says they were executed before the Lord, and then it says that God lifted the famine. That's very instructive. When I say that those Canaanite tribes their leadership was terrible and horrible and needed to go, that's not a cop-out answer. All you have to do is keep reading the New Testament, and all these people show up. The Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hevites, the Jebusites, etc., etc., etc. The first time I did this Bible study was like 6 or 7 years ago, and it was crazy because there was an article in Syria where folks could trace themselves back to Canaanite heritage, Gibeonite heritage, all that type of stuff. And I was just blown away because I'm like, damn, God is so faithful. Because when you look at the Old Testament, everything is Israel, Israel, Israel. And there are people that God has been like preserving and keeping together and all the rest of it, regardless. That was a long-winded answer. Sorry. Let me keep looking. To the Christians who hate Israel and the Jewish people, you do know that you worship a Jew, right? Maria Depp, I actually don't believe that's accurate. I don't believe it's accurate to say that Christians are worshiping a Jew. Remember, at the resurrection, Paul told us that Christ was going to raise one new man. And that Christ is the first fruits of that one new man. So the idea that you're worshiping a Jew if you're a Christian, it sounds cool and cute, but that's really not accurate, not even from a New Testament perspective. From a New Testament perspective, Jesus is some other species of human now, and we're gonna go there. We're gonna get to that level. That's what it means to be resurrected. I'm not gonna be resurrected as a Jamaican American. We're gonna be something else. So I get what you're saying, but that's not biblically accurate, right? We want to be as biblically accurate as we can possibly be. And let me show you what I'm talking about here. This is in Ephesians chapter 2. Okay. And I think it's just very instructive because I don't believe that God is a racist. I believe that God loves racists. I got a racist friend in here right now. But that's okay. That's okay. All right, so let me read this to you, and then I'll explain to you why I don't believe that I worship a Jew. Okay? Remember that at one time you Gentiles in the flesh called the uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision. Those are Jewish non-believers who were trying to get Gentile people to adopt circumcision, and Paul said it's not necessary and you shouldn't do it because that has nothing to do with your relationship with Christ. But look what he says. Remember that you were at that time separated from Christ, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now in Christ Jesus, you who were once far away have been brought near by the law of commandments, brought near by the blood of Christ. For he himself is our peace. When he says our, he's not talking about just us in the Christian church. He's talking about Jews and Gentiles and those conflicts. He himself is our peace, who had made us both one. Okay? Both one. Has broken. Okay, look right here. For he himself is our peace, who has both made us one and has broken down in his flesh a dividing wall of hostility by abolishing the law and commandments expressed in ordinances, that he might create in himself. Watch. Destroying the law and its commandments. That's the Old Testament. Destroying in the sense that it's fulfilled and is now obsolete. Nobody's walking around with an iPhone 1 anymore. Okay? So watch. Look what it says. It says, he might create in himself one new man in the place of two, so making peace. So literally the two men are Jews and Gentiles. And the Bible says Jesus rose from the dead so that we're not dealing in Jew-Gentile category anymore. Look, it says one new man in place of the two. So you got humanity divided up between Jew and Gentile. Resurrection happens, and God says that is humanity now. It is replacing the Jew and Gentile category. That's what it says in the text. Right? So it's not accurate to say that I worship a Jew. Okay. He made us both. I'm just going to keep reading because this is absolutely such a beautiful, beautiful passage. He says he's broken down in his flesh that dividing wall of hostility. So, you know, the temple had this thing called the court of the Gentiles, and it was like concentric circles. So when you get closer to God, and the Gentiles had to stop. Boop! And the sign said, if you're not a Jew and you take one step over this threshold, your blood is on your own head. Okay? And Paul is using that imagery of Gentiles not having access to God. And he says, you don't need to go to the physical temple. Jesus broke down the dividing wall of hostility in himself. And one of the things I really cannot stand is when Christians try to resurrect that wall of hostility and resurrect that division. Look at the text. The text says, one new man in place of the two. That's it. That's it. Secondly, I don't know anybody that hates the Israelis. But what I will say, though, is that the Bible makes it very clear about how God views violence, especially disproportionate violence. Okay? Now, this is written by a Jewish person, so I don't think you can say that this is me being anti-Semitic, right? I mean, it is what it is. I mean, there's nothing that can be done. This is Psalm chapter 11, verse 5. Okay? And here we go. God says, the Lord tests the righteous, but his soul hates the wicked and those who love violence. Oh, I thought God was a loving God. He's a loving God. He is. So when love interfaces with injustice, you're going to get that response. God does not love wanton violence. He hates people who revel in wanton violence. What I would say to you, my friend, shout out to I Look at News, whoever it was, I forgot who it was that was warning us about hating the Jews. My friend, God is a just God, and he's not a racist. And so I think, you know, look, if you wanna support Zionism, if you think Zionism is a godly philosophy and world application system, go for it. I personally think it's one of the most anti-Christ, anti-God, anti-biblical movements in the most recent century. People use historically today to use the Bible to justify racism. This is relevant, right? Right. I mean, that passage in Ephesians where it talks about dividing, you know, breaking down dividing wall of hostility and making a new person, a new man, thus killing the hostility. Paul says that's challenging to me as a black person, right? Because you gotta expand that. Okay, the immediate context is you Gentile, but obviously there's a spirit of the context too, right? Like we got beef. And Jesus is saying, in me, you guys can squash the beef now because we're going to make a new humanity. So like 50,000 years from now, ain't going to be no, you were a slave ship and you came here. Nah, it's like a new man. There's going to be a new timeline, a new world. All that shit will become new. And that's what we're waiting for. I would love to interview you. Interview me about what, Chad the alcoholic? You ever watch any Paul Vanderklay? No, who is that? I don't know who that is. He sounds like an interesting fellow, though. The same could be said about the cops. Yep. I look at news in the house. Jesus is half Jew and half divine. Biblical Jews are not the same as European Jews. No commento. As I said, if you go to Israel and you ask one of these people, you say, where is your grandfather buried? You got to go on a plane from Israel to Poland. You go to the Palestinian side and you say, where's your grandfather buried? And they'll point to you right outside, because there's a family little memorial garden that's been in their family for literally thousands of years. That's just what we're dealing with. See what I'm saying? I have a channel where I interview people and I just hear their life stories. All right, Chad. Well, I will get on your, send me an email, vinandsori@gmail.com, and we'll get it. We'll chop it up. I got 10 minutes, guys. 10 minutes before we jump on to the other thingamajig. The New Testament was made to be a political ploy by the Roman elite to run all the kingdoms. Christ is great. The Bible, not so much. Yeah, Shauna. I gotta tell you, historically, that's crazy. I love you, but the problem with that theory is that Jesus claimed to be the king over Nero or Domitian, however you want to date the book of Revelation. The entire way that the Roman Empire exercised power over people was to break their wills in the sense of emperor worship. So the idea that Romans would come up with a monotheistic religion and a human being, a divine, a combination of humanity and divinity in an actual person, and then foment a resurrection. None of those things make sense if you have a pedestrian understanding of Roman culture and philosophy. That's completely antithetical. It would be like saying Kim Jong-un, who is psychotic, believes he should be worshipped as a god. It would be the equivalent of him coming up with some messiah figure that speaks against him, that has more power than him. How would that benefit him? I don't see how that works. Later, Joe. Keep spreading the gospel. Gotta go. Love you, buddy. Love you. It's vinandsori@gmail.com, my boy. vinandsori@gmail.com. Later, Joe. Really, really good questions. Really good questions, for real. So yeah, I don't think that the New Testament was written as a political ploy by Christians, because the major tenets of Christianity completely upended Roman hegemony. Matter of fact, Sam Harris blames Christians for the downfall of the Roman Empire. Maybe we can talk about that another time. God bless you, Ray Phoenix. We got I think we got 5 minutes left. We got 10 minutes left. We got 10 minutes, dear listener, so keep the questions coming. This was fun. I should do more of this, huh? Maybe I'll do it again tonight. Looks like it'll be another all-nighter. Who's behind the curtain? I don't know. You're gonna have to see in a couple minutes, my man. You're gonna have to see in a couple minutes. Yeah, Basilius, Paul said to avoid endless genealogies, because those are for the ignorant. And what's fascinating is you're just as obsessed with race as the Pharisees and the Sadducees were. And so you have to keep up with all this stuff because you're so obsessed with genetics. It must be a hard life, my man. There's no way to combine your craziness with the New Testament. I love you, though. I love you. He's just going to give you a pat on the head. What do you think of Russia and Iran making a statement of how they almost ready to reveal their work in creating BRICS currency? I do not believe that the Indians are committed enough to go there. You know, like, if we had one generation of black athletes in the NFL, if you have one generation of black athletes that is saying, fuck this, we're not going to play. We're just not going to play. And then we're going to open up our own league. You could make that work. The problem is nobody wants to be that first generation that takes that loss. See what I'm saying? Romans did not come up with monotheism. The Bible was never supposed to be read by the public, only dictated by priests. The thing was written in Latin, for God's sake. Shauna, the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, right? And the New Testament was written in Koine Greek. And Koine Greek was a lingua franca of the people. When you're talking about Latin, you're talking about hundreds of years later. Jerome's Latin Vulgate is what you're referring to, okay? So the original Bible was not written in Latin. The Old Testament is Hebrew and Aramaic, and then your New Testament is in Koine Greek. And Koine Greek was a lingua franca at the time. So that's not true. Nyanja has expressed discomfort in the weaponization of the dollar. Well, I mean, everybody's uncomfortable about that. But they're going to have to take serious losses for a generation, man. Like, you saw what happened with that Nord Stream pipeline. That was a setup to a BRICS-style situation. But even that, we completely destroyed it on the world stage, and nobody's going to do anything about it. So, I mean, I get it, you know. I just don't think the Indians have the will to resist at the level that they're going to have to in order to make that work. Feel me? 5 minutes, guys. 5 minutes.
Can I steal that charger, or is it probably pretty low?
Go ahead.
This one?
Take it. 5 minutes, dear listener.
Thank you very much.
Bam, bam. Try to cool this down. Go on fire. Oh yeah, Chad. Okay, so he sent me that. All right, cool. Mm-hmm. Chad, I got your thing. So I'll send you an email.
Just came through.
I'll send you a thing. We'll do the interview, inshallah. If 14 books were taken out of the Bible in 1684, how can we trust the remaining books are true or unedited? Who told you that 14 books were taken out? Again, the Enochian literature is pseudo-epigraphal. The Jews did not believe it was inspired. Neither did Jesus. So the canon that you have, especially relative to the Old Testament, are not books that were extracted from the Bible. Remember, there was no Bible bookstore at the time. And so you would have these pseudo-epigraphal works and things like that to fill in gaps of curiosity that people had, like the Genesis 6 incident with the Nephilim, among other things. So those books were never looked upon by the church or by Judaism as being actually inspired scripture. My Bible software program has all those books and more, but this is not something that we... Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It's not something that we hide. I mean, it's pretty clear. John 3:16. Yeah, Maria. Yeah, thank you for John 3:16, Maria. But I don't think you should misrepresent your brothers and sisters. I haven't heard any Christians say that they hate Jews. I've heard a lot of people say they hate Zionism, and they should, because Zionism is an anti-Christ, anti-God, anti-human political philosophy that is going to benefit nobody but Satan, as it's going to surely get him more company in hell. Mm-hmm. If a person really loves the Jewish people and you believe in the Christian gospel, we should be saying a word to those people about the land. We should be telling them, you've rejected your Messiah, and there's literally going to be hell to pay. You see what happened to your folks in 70 AD? The Lord Jesus said he's going to show up with his armies, and he did. And he waxed a bunch of y'all. A million of y'all died, another million went off into the slave market. So much so that you lowered the price of slaves across the board due to supply and demand. Yeah. Maria, that's really the only message that Christians should have for those people. But we're out here talking to these people about the land and how the land belongs to them and all this other shit. So as they're just massacring these Palestinian people, we're just going to turn a blind eye because God is a land broker and a racist. be careful about saying that shit in public. We don't want people that we love to get a distorted view of who God is. You can have biases toward those folks. Look, if you're the son of a colonizer or the daughter of a colonizer, you're gonna relate to those people a lot more, right? Like the idea, and people are like, well, October 7th. The idea that you're just supposed to take oppression over and over again and never resist. That is something only comfortable white Western people can relate to. Most people, when you oppress them, get to the point where they say, I don't care if I live or die. I'm not going to live under one more second of this shit. It's understandable to me. Hey, look at Basilius. Okay, now hold on. So we're gonna do this with Basilius, and then we're gonna go. And look,
I was laughing at Applejack.
my brother Basilius is a little sick, guys. Okay, so don't react to the.
Oh no! Every time you say don't react, you prep the audience.
It's Steven. He's the resident racist over there.
Oh.
Okay, so
it's so hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So look.
Yep.
This is so funny. So I said, look, we really shouldn't be worried about all this stuff with lineage and stuff. But if you're a racist, then you have to worry about lineage, right? Mm-hmm. So here's Basilius. Where'd he go? Come here, baby. Where'd you go? Okay, look. Don't get offended. He said, someone's got to keep track of people's lineages, my nigga. See, look. That's what he says, right? Here's the Apostle Paul. Nor to devote themselves to myths like white supremacy and endless genealogies which promote speculations rather than the stewardship of God that is by faith. Rather than the stewardship of God that is by faith. Basilius.
Behold.
He's dumb as hell, bro.
Behold.
I love him, but he's so stupid. Basilius, read your Bible. God told you to stop paying attention. He told you to stop paying attention to the silly genealogies, and you have the audacity, the nerve, the unmitigated gall to come up in this building here and talk about somebody's got to keep track of the lineages. You keep track of them in hell, my boy.
You're unruly.
You and Netanyahu and who's the rabbi that
we're gonna follow Jesus
doing all the disgusting stuff with his daughter? Was it Shmuley?
Shmuley or something.
Yeah, it's gonna be Basilius Shmuley. This is gonna be nah. We gotta. Hey, if you're a Christian, you gotta double time and pray for Basilius, bro. You gotta pray for him because I don't want him to end up where Shmuley and the rest of them are going.
Gross.
Because he's not going to like it. You understand what I'm saying to you? I feel like Shmuley would enjoy hell for like probably the first 10 years.
My God.
But
what?
Basilius, he wouldn't enjoy a second of it.
You are reckless right now.
Basilius like, hey, Applejack, come down here. Serve me. That's what he would do. Hey.
Is there perhaps a bit of mercy? Oh man, you want help?
He's just so bad. All right, guys. We're gonna go on the other side.
All right, you guys. We have a music. Wait,
mandrakes are ancient Near Eastern aphrodisiac. What do you want?
Do you say from here where we're going, or do you just say we're going to the other spot?
If you guys are into music, there's a channel called Sori. We're 3 minutes late, so we're gonna lock this one up.
You're reviewing True Cult picks.
Yep. Shout out to the big homie Neil. Did you hear that Kendrick Lamar attacked Drake? He's my favorite white guy, man. Why did Kendrick have to?
Oh boy. Where's this thing?
He's just saying Drake has just been going on for like 4 or 5 weeks. And Biden just now like got wind of it. What happened to poor Drake? This is my favorite white guy.
Well, I believe he's not
like us
in the country.
Yeah, they're not like us. They're like y'all, Basilius. That's a song was for you, my boy. Hey, shout out to all my racists all over the world, man. Hey, you be you.
And we'll be us.
Huh? I got one of the prettiest white women on the planet, poor Basilius. You know he's hurting him. You know it's hurting him. Look at this, buddy. Look, Basilius. I got this all stained shirt and shit. It's all stained. She don't care.
No.
I couldn't
I'm a fan.
I couldn't let this white shirt. I couldn't let this white shirt just be. I had to put some stain because I just couldn't let this perfect white woman be. I had to put some. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Drake is a fave white guy. Of course. Sori's blacker than Drake. What you mean? You saw Adonis. That little nigga came, he blonde hair and shit. Like, so come on, Drake, please.
All right, you guys, we gotta go. We have places to be, and we're late.
Yeah. You just think she's one of the prettiest because she's your wife. Nah, my boy. She's my wife because she's one of the prettiest. Your boy is shallow. I'm about 2 inch deep in this bitch.
All right, babe, ready?
Basilius isn't a good enough racist. All right, guys, we're going to be on the other side of the break. Much love to all you beautiful people. Paul has your back on Judgment Day. My boy. I ain't gonna say
Jesus has my back on Judgment Day.
I ain't gonna say that. I ain't gonna say that. We're gonna get you guys on the other side of the break. Vin out.